So CPF investing is a very hot topic today on both sides. On one side, people think like 2.5% is not enough. You should invest your CPF money so that you can get more returns and compound that for the long term when you retire down the road. But then there's also the other side that is saying like, a lot of people that are investing their CPF through the CPF IS system have not been performing. So CPF has released their own report and all that stuff, right? So both sides are talking about it. There's all the content, all the different angles out there, and we are jumping into it. Finally, we're going to start discussing about CPF and CPF investment. We're going to start with the side of why you should invest your CPF money. And down the road, we'll welcome the other side of the discussion, and you can make your own informed decision as to whether you want to invest your CPF money and how do you want to go about doing it. So welcome to another Chills with TFC session. In this series, we have to bring on interesting, relevant people to help us learn better from various perspectives. Life is not always about learning from people that you already agree with. Perspectives shape a rounder thinker. So in our pursuit of the life we love or managing our finances, well, our guests today have built their business around CPF investing. I would say they're pretty synonymous with it. Okay? They don't just do that, but they're very famous with it. I'm sure you've seen the ad. CPF? CPF? I always joke about this with them. But the idea is they have built along this path of CPF investment scheme to build low-cost index funds. Okay, they are the sole provider. They are the sole provider of low-cost index funds through the CPF IS system. They've also built retirement calculator. So CPF retirement calculator that fully embodies the whole process from your 55, your 65, you can draw down CPF Life, accumulation, whatever you. So they have built a model to envision how much you actually need for CPF. So I think by now you know who I'm talking about. CPF. So I'm very happy to welcome CIO Samuel Ree and personal finance lead Sheng Shi of Endowus. So I know you guys are off to a good start, right? You've gotten like cross your 1 billion and all that jazz,
Yep.
AUM, right? And you're rolling out a lot of stuff, and that's why we're here today.
Okay.
But I think to kind of roll it out and just kind of get started,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just share with us a little bit why should we invest CPF, right? Because recently there's been a lot of discussion, whether it's
Yeah.
on papers or whether it's online and what have you, that people that invest CPF, they don't really perform that well. Right, but you
Okay.
guys are like champions for like, you must invest in
Yeah.
CPF. You build portfolios around it, right? So why invest CPF?
Okay. So there's a whole like complicated story around CPF. I'll just boil it down to the most important piece, which is returns. Okay, and you highlighted the returns of people who invest their CPF versus those who keep it in CPF and don't do anything with it. So we all know that CPF, the ordinary account, gives you 2.5%, the bulk of it. And as time goes by, more of it piles into that pot. And then there's a special account which gives you 4%. Now, let's look at those numbers and what they mean. 2.5% is barely above the rise in the cost of living that we have, right? Purchasing power, we call this. And so, official inflation rates are about 1.7% historically, but you and I, we all know that the cost of living is rising much faster than 1.7%, honestly, right? So if it's 2.5%, your cost of living is increasing at that rate. You set aside $10,000 now. Every year that time passes, you're gonna still be left with $10,000. There's no return. There's no real return in that money, right? And people compare that 2.5% and say, hey, but it's risk-free, it's guaranteed. And you compare that to fixed deposits, you get so much more. But fixed deposits, what are they? They give you less than 1%, and it's below inflation, which means that it's a negative return, right? So why would you invest in anything that is negative? And why would you compare your returns to a negative return, right? So it doesn't make any sense. You should compare that 2.5% versus what you can get if you invest well and invest in the long term. Financial markets historically have given you 7% plus minus 1-2%, right? Anything is better than 2.5%. Now, that's where it comes from. You need to use that OA money to work harder for you. Don't compare to fixed deposits because this is not a 1-year lockup. This is a 30-year lockup, a 50-year lockup, or it can be even longer. And if you invest that long in a monthly contribution scenario, the chances of you succeeding in investing in financial markets rises a lot. What's holding us back is actually the lack of access to great products. It's the huge cost of investing traditionally, and it's that we don't get good advice about it. So where do people invest? So that return number, that it doesn't, people don't get 2.5%, most of them underperform. It's because people put it into insurance-linked products. Or they bought Singtel during IPO and it hasn't done well in the past 1 year. So because it was a 1 year performance ending, when was it? Ending March or September, whatever it was. It was an old number, and it was included the COVID crisis. So basically, what I'm saying is that you can do much, much better with your OA. SA is very different, and we'll go into that, I think, in much detail later. And SA 4% risk-free is actually a decent number.
Shots fired. Boom, boom.
Bazooka's coming later.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I totally get the part about how people they don't have access to good products. Okay, or I shouldn't price myself out of this. We don't have access to very good products in the past.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of details in terms of, you can only put like how many percent here, you can only do how many percent there, right? So it's like, it's so complicated, really. Like the man on the street just wants to live a life and just at the end of the day have sufficient for pension.
Yeah.
And retirement and all that, right?
Oh,
so,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but I know you guys
We feel the same.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we feel the same, and that's why we created Endowus.
Yes, that's
right?
a great place to start, right? So,
Tough.
Yeah, so, but then based on the survey, like as an extension of the discussion, there's a YouGov survey, right, that just came out, and it shows that people are not really that confident about CPF going to the future, and it may be because of complexity, it may be because of what have you, right? So, and it's not giving them that assurance that, hey, I just ride on this thing and I will be able to retire and all that jazz, right? So what are your thoughts, like based on what has happened?
Yeah, I mean, Sheng Shi jump in, but I mean, basically, I think it really is very complicated. Even for a financial professional, and I've been in finance 27 years, I mean, I've done everything, but I realized that it's actually really, really complicated, even for a financial professional.
Comprehensive and complicated.
Comprehensive. It's actually because it's comprehensive is complicated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good thing, but but with caveats, right?
Yeah. It's comprehensive because it's not just a pension plan. Like many national pension schemes in other countries, it's just a pension plan. They have a separate medical plan. They have a separate, all this other stuff. But CPF is a total social security system. So it includes everything in it. Includes, retirement, medical, education, housing. So it includes everything that most systems in other countries don't have. But that's why it's actually a good system, because it has flexibility. And the most important thing about CPF, I realize more as time goes by, is the flexibility is amazing. And there's so much you can do to enhance your returns and achieve better outcomes for yourself and your loved ones because of that flexibility, right?
Yeah. So I think Sam mentioned about the flexibility of CPF and how it's very comprehensive and complicated, right? So what happens is that it's if you have finesse in how managing your finances.
Finesse,
right? You know all the tricks.
You gotta finesse the system.
Yeah, exactly. If you know the hacks, if you know how to navigate around all the transfers, the tax hacks and whatever, then you do a fantastic job with it, right? Because there's so many great things about it, right? The higher interest rate, the tax reliefs, the opportunity to invest. So there's a lot of things that you can do with CPF, and I think CPF has done a very great job educating people about what broadly CPF can be used for, right? So our survey shown that 90+% of people are aware that you can use it for retirement, healthcare, housing, whatever, right? So CPF has a huge marketing budget, and I think they used it well.
Yeah, they should use it on us too.
Yeah.
yeah, they probably can. Yeah, should invite them. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. We're talking to them. So yes. CPF, right? Shout out. Which camera?
Yeah, shout out.
At?
Which camera? Yeah. They're everywhere.
Yeah. CPF
Covers everything.
Yeah, just come, right?
Yeah.
Come on our show. Yes.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, so 90+% are aware of how to use it, but only 50+% actually actively plan to use it or are using it for retirement or for housing or medical, right? So I think people know what's going on, but they are not very sure how it sort of melts into their financial plans, right? So they probably not so willing to use it because, again, like what Sam say, they love the high interest rate, but they don't have a plan to decumulate from CPF, and that becomes a problem because you tend to it gives you the anxiety around how am I going to manage my finances. If my cash money is going to go to my kids' tuition, it's going into housing, then there's a big pool of money that I somehow don't know how to access, right? So it becomes a very big cause of concern for retirement, especially.
Yeah, you said this word decumulate. What is that?
Basically to draw down or withdraw from CPF.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think Singaporeans can save a lot in CPF, but they don't know how to use it? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so I mean, even ex manpower minister, Mr. Lim Swee Say actually said this thing, right? So every month when he received paper statements from CPF, back in the days, right, he says that he feels very rich, right? So he actually said that it's it's quite interesting comment, but it's actually true, right? So many of us sort of like accumulate a lot of money in CPF. We don't know how to use it, and when we look at our CPF balances, we feel we are very rich, but in the end, we don't know how best to use it. So that's an issue that I think can only be addressed if people have finesse in how they manage their CPF.
But I think we're using a lot of generalizations because it's very difficult because CPF, there are people like, the ex-minister, is he ex-minister, right?
Yeah.
His current minister, but I called him ex. Like the ministers, obviously, they're going to have a lot more piled up, right? And people, white-collar professionals who are in a well-paying job are going to have a lot saved up. But there's a lot of Singaporeans who are not going to have as much, right? Especially if they use their away for their housing, etc. So it's a wide spectrum because CPF is for everybody. And so, everybody has a different situation that they're in and different use for CPF. And that's where the flexibility comes in because no matter where you sit and how much money you have, you can use a CPF to your benefit. And so I think it's worth people spending time. And previously, it was convoluted, it was complex, we didn't have as much information, we didn't know how to use it, and many people had mistrust in the system as well. But I think now, like wonderful financial bloggers like Reggie here, other great guys also out there somewhere. But
Somewhere.
CPF board has also done a lot more. I think they've improved is what I would say. They've improved a lot from where they used to be. And so I think with all those resources out there, people can, self-teach themselves, learn from others, and there's this wonderful movement called 1M65 movement that our friend Lou's doing. And he has a chat group where people share information with each other. And so I think there's a lot more resources where you can find out more, all the hacks and tax hacks and, shields and, finessing the system to improve your outcomes.
I think 1M65 went a little too far when they go for 4M65.
Dude, I'm
I
gonna
think
do
there's like 6 and 8 M's, whatever.
You should have you had Lou on the channel?
Nah, I'm not.
No, but you should because Lou is actually interesting because that 1M65 began with a target of 1 million for him and his wife. People don't realize it's actually for a couple, married couple, maximizing their thing. He's actually gonna hit 1 million and he's only my age, 49. He's hitting 1 million
I thought
already.
you were 39.
No.
Is that?
I look 39,
Yeah,
Reggie.
Good start.
But he's at this pace, he's gonna hit 4 million or 5 million by the time he gets to 65. And the reason is because of this effect of compounding, right? Compounding, for those that are less familiar, is if you have $100, you get 10% return, that's $10, right? But the next year you have $110. So with the same 10%, you're getting $11 back. And that keeps adding to your returns so that within like 7 years, you've doubled your money. But within 8 years, you're actually getting twice the return, 20% return on the original $100. So, and it keeps going that within 30 years, you're actually like 10x the amount. So it keeps like growing exponentially. So that's compounding because you're adding on to the returns that you've already generated historically, as long as you don't take the money out. And that's CPF, right? You're not taking your money out. Let it compound. And that money is for the long term. And that's going to have a tremendous effect, when you hit late 40s into 50s and 60s.
But yes, I saw your face, like you were agonizing over that whole like 1M65 thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because I think 1M65, okay, although I've not talked to Lulu, feel free to come. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I don't even know which camera to look at. It's like, yeah. So shout out to Lou, feel free to email us, hello@financialcoconut.com, right? Welcome you to come on the show. But their main idea is to put OA to SA, and that's it. That's why it's simple, easy strategy. People can subscribe to that. Very simple. So from 2.5, you max out to become 4, right? And that's it. But you guys are not peddling that idea. You're not pushing that
No, no,
idea.
actually, the 1M65 has two main things. One is maximizing your SA return with the 4%, right? So you shift it over and get more than the 2.5%. But the other piece is you have to invest your OA. That is actually critical to achieving the large numbers that you want to get to. Because 4% is not going to get you there. So 4% is great. 4% is risk-free. So that's the most amazing one. 4% is not amazing. 4% you can get everywhere. You get like income funds, fixed income funds, equity funds doing much, much better. Many of them returning 25% in a year. So it's not the 4%.
Really? Many of them returning 25%?
In the last 12 months.
Okay, yeah. 'Cause, right?
Yeah, we gotta be careful.
We gotta
yeah.
be careful. Like last year
Depends,
was
yeah,
crazy.
it depends.
Yes.
But over the long term, markets will give you 7-10%.
Yeah.
And that's empirical, historical, delivered performance over
Yes.
decades. And that's better than 4%, right? So it's not the 4% that's amazing, it's 4% risk free, no volatility. That's the most amazing part. So SA plays an important role of stability, zero volatility, dampening the volatility of your returns. So you have that SA anyway. There's a minimum SA you have to have for your retirement RA, your MA, and everything. And so you have that anyway. So your OA, you can take risk in financial markets to generate the higher returns. So what it ends up looking like is your OA looks like your equities portion, and your SA ends up being your fixed income portion. So it becomes a balanced portfolio no matter what you do. So your CPF is an amazing balanced portfolio with your SA. And then the final decision you need to make is what is your risk appetite? What is your personal needs? Can I take this risk on the OA, or am I going to buy for a house, or I need education, whatever it is. So you can just tweak the numbers so that does it become 60-40 or 70-30 or 80-20? Or does it become 50-50 or 40-60? So SA is a bigger portion and you have a little bit of equity. So that's the only real asset allocation decision you need to make for your CPF. I know Sheng Shi has a lot to add. So
Yeah.
I can feel it.
I'm
I can feel it.
waiting for it.
It's like,
I just
I
say-
actually don't agree. Yeah. So tell me.
No, not really. Actually, what Sam's maybe just to add on one more point, right?
Okay.
So
yeah, say Sam's right first. Yeah.
yeah, Sam is definitely right.
Yeah.
We're just trying to like create
It's
a
like,
divide.
you know.
Yeah.
It's all part of media.
It's okay. Yeah, so what happens is that for a special account, there is a limit to how much you can transfer from OA.
Yes.
Precisely.
Right, so that is the existing the prevailing FRS rate, which is in this year is $186,000. Right, so for many of us Singaporeans, we have so much of our money that's contributed to CPF, right? 37% of our gross salary, up to $6,000, goes into CPF, right? So over a long period of time, you have most people would have like $500,000, a million or whatever that is inside their CPF account. So there's a limit to how much of this OA to SA transfer that you can do, right? Because of all of these limits. Because the government, GIC, is not printing money, right? There's only so much 4% that they can give out. So, it's very... that's why Lu also have that plan, right? Okay, so maybe you want to, sort of like get that safety net, financial safety net of 4% first, then later on, you should be looking towards investing your CPF OA because you would have accumulated more money in your CPF OA over a longer period of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add that point. Yeah.
You talk a little bit about the whole Singaporeans have a lot of money in CPF, and I think you rightfully point out that it's 37%. Right? Too many Singaporeans think it's like, we're only contributing 17%, but no, your whole income is actually a lot more in CPF. So with that idea, we're not trying to critique, whether this is a good policy and whatnot, but with that idea, I think it gives people the clarity and understanding that, hey, actually a lot of money is in the CPF, you should spend more effort on it, right? Don't just keep looking at whatever that's remaining in your disposable and all that jazz, right? So I think that is a very good point.
Reggie, that's a good point, but also I think I would add on that you are going to continue to contribute to that. So while the balance right now in your 20s and 30s looks small, it's going to only grow. So you have to be ready with the strategy when you're young because it's such an important piece and it's going to be an even more important piece in the future. So it's really worth spending the time and the effort to sort this out, figure it out, and develop a plan that works for you and is suitable for you because it's such a big piece in the future. Yeah.
So what is the magic number? You know, a lot of people, it's always this question, right? There's always this question, and I tell people, you know, yeah, never mind, I'll leave you guys to say it, right?
But Reggie,
yeah.
what would you like if you retire at 60 or 65, right? How much money on a monthly basis do you think you need to live a comfortable life in retirement? Like thinking that you're gonna be living until like maybe 90, right? Typically, that's the number.
Wow.
So that's the one number that I think is the most important number. What is your monthly income that you need to sustain a decent quality of life in your retirement in old age? Once you get that number, then you can work everything else out backward.
Yeah.
So what is your assumption then? Okay, because I think a lot of people, when they plan for retirement, or at least a lot of people in the 30s, which is where most of our listeners are, when they talk about retirement, or when they work with a financial planner or what have you about retirement, they're always benchmarking where they are today. It's like, oh, so we're spending 5,000 a month today, and we'll continue to spend more into the future. But in my head, it's like, nah, you cannot have mala every day when you're 80. So it's probably gonna look a little bit like that. Like your consumption curve is gonna come down, you know, later in your life, right? So I'm curious, like, you know, or at least that's what I think, right? So just educate me.
Yeah, it's a very individualized. I mean, it's a very personal issue, right? So, you know, for example, my parents could be line dancing at the community center, right? Or my parents could be going to do you know, voluntary trips overseas, doing charitable work overseas, right? So the retirement lifestyle is totally different, right? One could be spending $10,000 a month. One could just be, you know, spending $500 a month doing line dance. Yeah, line dance at a community center. It really differs, right? Because some people, they want to have a very drastic change in lifestyle at retirement. So I think what Sam talked about, which is to have have an understanding of how much money you want to spend at retirement. That's the first important number that we need to look at, right? Then after that, we need to work backwards to calculate how much wealth we need to have, right? So I think one method that people, or one way of looking at it that a lot of people use is the 4% safe withdrawal rule, right? So for example, you know, if we were to line dance at the community center, we spend $500 a month, right? And that would in the end equate to $6,000 a year. So if you take that $6,000 a year, which is what you withdraw from your wealth every year, right? So you take 6,000, divide by that 4%, you'll get a number, right? And that number will be basically how much you need to accumulate for your wealth. You know, this is a very big assumption because, you know, there's a lot of things built behind that model, right? So it assumes that, you know, that you have your retirement span is gonna be 30 years. So we know that, you know, now people are always talking about FIRE, right? I want to reach financial independence. You know, I want to retire early. I hate my job. I want to quit.
You know, if you hate your job, change your job. Okay?
Yeah.
Do something meaningful.
Do something. Join Endowus.
Or the financial coconut.
Oh, that's like recruitment plug. That's like recruitment plug. There.
Recruitment
Okay,
plug.
You're saving yourself 5,000 for LinkedIn spend.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you know, find a new job, right? But you know, people want to spend more time doing things that they love at an earlier stage of their life, right? So that's one thing, right? So you may be retiring, you know, you may be drawing down on your wealth across 40 years or 50 years. So that's one big change in assumption. And the other change in assumption was that, you know, the Trinity study was done in the simulations that they are doing is between 1920 to 1990s, right? And during that period of time, fixed income were doing, you know, returning 3-4% a year. Right now, if you look at it,
even higher.
even higher.
Yeah, for people that don't know, the Trinity study is the one that backed the 4% drawdown research.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So that you know, that doing 4%, 5% a year, right? But now if you look at the fixed income returns, Sam, what was it, like 2-3% at best?
Could be higher, depending on where you invest actually,
Yeah,
within
yeah,
fixed
exactly.
income.
Yeah, it depends
there's
on
a
how you
lot of
play with
flexi-
this.
yeah.
Fixed income is like way more
It's
complex than
such
equity.
a big market,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
good investors could generate 3, 4, 5%, but
Yeah, even more maybe, right?
if you take less risk, then you're gonna only end up with like 2% or less.
Yeah,
right?
government bonds or
Yeah.
corporates, right? So those will be yielding a lot lower.
Mm.
So a lot of the assumptions have changed, right? So when you talk about magic number, what should you do to get better prepared for retirement? I think we need to look at it from a very local context. And the most my tip or hack would be that you need to focus on your CPF, because you get 4%. As a baseline, you get an annuity product, right? So even for the existing enhanced retirement sum, you're getting around $2,000 per month, based if you were to
Yeah,
have.
yeah. So I think those are strategies, right? People like, I think strategy. There are a lot of
Yeah.
things that are out there, and CPF is great. And I mean, you guys are building a product on CPF and all that jazz, right? But I do think for a lot of people, the problem is the model, not
Yeah.
the solution, right? So like, how do I envision
Yeah.
what retirement is gonna be like, right? So do you have some like best practices, or like how do I decide like, okay, how much do I really need? Because everybody tells me like, oh, depends on your lifestyle, depends
Yeah,
on
yeah.
and
Yeah.
all that jazz. So I get that, right? But how do I
Let me add
how do I
on,
model
yeah.
it? Yes, how do I
Let
model
me
that?
add on, because I think one important we used the word decumulation earlier, right?
Yes.
So that's the period post retirement when you're drawing down on your savings. The period before that is accumulation, right? Most important contribution to accumulation is your income. And so everybody has a different income cycle. So if you're a white collar professional, when you start off in your 20s, then it's the lowest point in your life in terms of your monthly income. But it keeps rising, and it rises quite fast. It normally peaks at around your 40s into your late 40s, into your 40s. During your 40s, it peaks, it comes off, but it comes off maybe 20%, 30% by the time you retire. So if you keep working, that is. But if you're in the retail business and you're working at a restaurant or in a service industry, you start from your 20s, it goes up, but it peaks much earlier in your 30s. And then it comes down. By the time you retire in your 60s, you're actually earning less than your 20s. So the income cycle, depending on which industry you're in, which service sector you're in, and how good you are, which level you're at, is going to determine what your future income cycle looks like. That's the most important piece, because it's income times a percentage that's going to be your savings. And savings is only going to be, look, if you're saving 37% and you're setting aside another 10%, that's less than half of your income. If you're just living off of your savings in the future and the cost of living's doubled, then you're going to have a quarter of your money, like you're going to have 25% of your income to live with. So it doesn't make any sense. And that's why you need to invest. That's why CPF has a return. And that return should overcome any kind of cost of living increases, and it should be at a level that is a certain level of percentage of your final income. So at the point of retirement, Sheng Shi was sharing that maybe it's about 80% of your income that should be maintained into your future. But these days, actual studies show the level of income remains at 100%. Level of expenditure remains 100% of your retirement
Really?
point. Yeah. So people are actually, after they retire, they have more time. So they start spending more money and travel, buy new golf sets, go visit their children when they're not wanted, and do all that stuff that they do, and go to dance classes and stuff that they wouldn't have done, and therefore they actually spend more. So the only cost that goes down in retirement normally is housing and rent, right? And other, maybe we eat less, but it's not going to make a difference, right? But everything else actually stays relatively high or goes up, in fact, because of your leisure activities. So as a result, I think there is, and that's personal, so some people don't need to. They start going to nice restaurants in their 40s and 50s, and then they start going back to the hawker food centers in your 50s and 60s and retirement. I don't know, but everybody's different, and they go back to mala, But everybody's different. But I think the income cycle you need to track. That's your accumulation. How much goes into CPF? How much you save? And then in your decumulation, you need to figure out how much income you really need. And those are the two key determinants, because everything else is pretty constant. Inflation rates, level of returns. And the only thing that you can determine and change is where you invest and how much return you generate. And there, the level of risk you take and the level of return is going to be correlated, right? You take less risk, you're going to have less return, you're going to have less money in the future. If you take a little bit more risk, you have higher returns, you're going to have more money in the future, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, fair. So
It's pretty simple, Reggie. You know?
yeah, okay. So
Just like CPF.
okay. So what I'm hearing
Yeah.
is we don't try to over model the expenses. We just assume some basic things, which is like if you're gonna retire and you're gonna spend $5,000 a month, then we'll assume that you continue to spend $5,000 a
Yeah.
month, right? Don't try too hard to model that.
Yeah, we don't over-engineer it on behalf of other people. I think that's
Okay,
important.
okay,
Yeah.
And the CPF calculator that's come out is, amazing tool, but we give flexibility in there so people can plug in different numbers so that they can play around with what the outcome is. And that flexibility in CPF, but calculating your, future outcome is really important. Yeah. And I would say be conservative. Like if you think you can live on $3,000, think again. Cost of living is going to be higher. You're going to spend more than you think always. And so, raise it up a little bit more and then work backwards, and you'll probably run out of money faster than you think. That's the biggest concern. Yeah.
Yeah, and talking about the calculator, so I played around with the calculator and all that,
Yeah.
and I see that there are a few major milestones, right, in the calculator, because if it's a gradual change, I'll be like, okay, this is not the interesting part, right, because that means the solution is playing out. There's no big differences, but at 55 and 65 in your model, which is also an extension of the country's policy and CPF, there are big changes, right, in that graph that shows, right. So, could you kind of walk us through a little bit on like how should we envision that part, which is the prevailing minimum sum, and then post of that, all that jazz.
Yeah, exactly. So you like you rightfully point out the 55-year-old, 65-year-old. How the calculator plays out is actually based on the CPF policies, right? So at 55 years old, what happens to your CPF account is that the CPF would transfer part of your special account to the retirement account, right? And if you have the full retirement sum already, just from special account, then they wouldn't transfer from OA, right? But if you don't have enough in your SA, they will transfer your OA as well to form the retirement account, and that will be later on your CPF life premium, right? So what happens is effectively, your CPF withdrawable balance would decrease, right? And of course, there's a lot of other things that are happening on at the same point of time, right? Your contribution rate from your employers and for yourself, it's lower, right? So you have a bit more money to spend from your salary, right? And of course, you also have access to the additional 1% interest on the first $30,000 from your, government giving out goodies, making sure that we have enough money for retirement. Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few things going on over there. We try to be, not that we try. We model in everything that's very complicated about and comprehensive about CPF into the model, so that it gives people the assurance that this is a good tool that can use to not to comprehensively project where their wealth will be, right? So that's for the 55-year-old milestone. The 65-year-old milestone, what happens is that we will be able to get an annuity payout from CPF Life, right? So we model in the CPF Life standard plan at FRS, not at the enhanced retirement sum, not at the smaller amount, because that's what most Singaporeans actually, that's a default option, and that's what most Singaporeans choose to have anyway, right? So we CPF they don't project so far ahead with the FRS or the retirement payout, because I think they also understand that when you drag the spreadsheet, the Excel models, right, there's a lot of assumptions behind it, right? But we take that step and we take the risk and say, what, we will just make an assumption for you, so that you can at least do some planning around it, right? So we do that. We make an assumption that FRS would grow by 3%, the payout will increase by 3%. So again, people can understand that, hey, after taking into account inflation, and other complicated things, right? How my retirement payout I can get from CPF. So those are the things that we build into the model. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you want to add something?
No. Just that it is a pretty comprehensive calculator. So many people have created CPF calculators, but it hasn't been comprehensive enough to give you the full picture. So this is the first one of its kind, and we're all about financial education and improving literacy. It's not, we don't make any money off of it. There's no model or that, and we're not selling through it. It's actually just a calculator for people to just use so that they can better understand where they are and where they're headed. But the other thing is, importantly, like the 55, 65 are important milestones because of the policies that have been set in place. But I would suggest, okay, everybody's waiting for 55 to take out all their money. Most of the people who've taken out their money have not done better, is the way I would put it. I think CPF is great because you have these safeguards in place, and it's probably the right decision beyond 55, even beyond 65, to keep most of your money in CPF that you've accumulated and do better with it. So you continue to receive those good interest rates on your retirement sum, on your OA even, the 2.5% you can get forever if you keep it in there. Like most people think, 2.5, is only for a while and then it disappears, but you can keep it. And not only that, you can even, in the future, if Endowus does well and, CPF does well and everybody does well, then we'll have even better options at lower cost at investing it well too. So what I'm saying is that, CPF investment scheme, it began with Singtel IPO and, single stocks, and then it opened up to mutual funds, which was really expensive, and then insurance links product because the insurance guys screwed us and took all our money. But no, I'm just kidding.
That's all recorded.
No.
That's all recorded.
Controversial.
Yeah. But I
No. I mean, not all, but I'm saying a little. They kind of oversold it, and then the other stuff single stocks and ETFs and everything. So there's a lot of options, and you can do a lot with it. And so I would suggest that despite all those things, there is a piece which is an investment piece, and you can do much better with it if you just keep it there, because the options are only going to improve over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use it as a savings account, right?
Yeah.
After 55 or 65, you can withdraw. You can
savings account, investment account, retirement account. You can do all.
Yeah. I mean, the money you just basically it's just a pay now transfer.
Yeah.
It's like a bank account, so don't take out the money. Don't go to Batam or whatever. Yeah.
Or dragon ladies.
That's like all the stereotypes pumped into one.
I know, seriously, we're so bad. Cut this out, please.
Yeah.
No, but my point is that 55 is when it's unlocked.
Unlocked, yeah.
It's not 55 you take out. I think that's the equation that needs to change. Everybody thinks 55 I can take out. No, 55 is when it's unlocked. After that, you can take it out at any time that you want. So keep it in there. When you need it, take it out. But keep it in there. Just like any savings account, long-term savings account, or any investment account, you don't suddenly reach 65 and take all your money out in retirement. You're going to have to continue to invest in your retirement. How you invest in your retirement is actually more important than how you invest prior to your retirement. Because prior to retirement, you're going to have monthly savings income, you're going to keep adding to it, and even if markets fall, you're going to keep dollar cost averaging for the next 20 years in your 30s or 40s, right? So in your 40s, 65 is 25 years away. That's a long time to invest, right? And you're going to have income, so you're going to invest monthly throughout that time. So how you invested previously, and this is the whole, do you invest lump sum or is it dollar cost averaging? It doesn't matter in the long term, because at 30 or 40, you still have so much in the future that you're going to be investing. And you're going to be investing for so much longer, it actually doesn't make a meaningful difference over time. But lump sum always wins over the long term versus dollar cost averaging, because you're getting in earlier in the market, and markets tend to do well, right? So that's really important to understand. And so because you have such a long runway, you need to continue to invest well in your retirement, because when you retire at 65 and you live to 90, that's another 25 years. That's a long time.
I don't know. Can I live to 90? I'm like, what's I gonna do?
Dude, the average life expectancy in Singapore is already 84.
Yeah.
But more importantly, that's at birth, right? If you reach 65, and if you're talking about CPF at 65, you're expecting to live to 65. At 65, the life expectancy extends by more than 2 years. So you're actually living to 88 now. Now, if you hit 65 this year. But if we get 60 to 65, we'll definitely be beyond 90. We may even be heading to 100, right? So that is only extending. So it's a long time, guys. Seriously, we really need to think this through, prepare for retirement well. And I love that 20s and 30-year-olds are really thinking about retirement much more. And these kind of YouGov surveys that we've done, more education on CPF. All of this is so important because it's going to really determine the future of Singapore, the shape of society in the future. It really is the most critically important thing.
Yeah. But all that being said, the CPF IS is still very complicated at this point in time. With more options, they're not.
Yeah.
So is this thing between like, do we want to just centralize everything and just give
Mm.
everybody like this few solutions, or do we want to continue to open up options? Right. So CPF IS, the investment
Yeah.
scheme is still going down the path of opening more options, and you guys
Yep.
are one of the options. They're not
Yep.
they're not eliminating the others
No.
the other stuff.
No.
Right. Essentially, that's kind of what's happening with the investment scheme. Right. So
Mm.
CPF IS. What are your thoughts then, like in terms of putting money with all these different products, and like what is your solution?
Mm. Okay,
Yeah.
so CPF investment scheme was created to allow people flexibility. And so it wasn't a grand design from the beginning. I think it kind of
It's a
evolved.
patchwork.
It was a patchwork.
Yes,
And
yes.
the CPF admits that. And it was great because if you got in at Singtel or Singpost IPO, then it did well for you, right? So it was an opportunity for the average Singaporean to start investing, invest in public nationalizations and IPOs, and get going. And it's great. But I think that many things have evolved since then. So when it opened up, I think many financial institutions took advantage of it. And instead of being a low cost kind of solution to prepare for retirement, it became, like many things, a quick fire solution to get rich quick. And so I think when you enter investing with that mindset, you're always going to fail. And so,
Sam, you want to share about the insane charges that were charged previously?
yeah, so we looked at this. When we came into CPF, we really looked at the system and how we can improve the investment scheme. There were many things that we could improve on. First of all, the experience. Like, creating an account just took 2 weeks or more, like forever. You had to go to a physical bank and all those things. So we had to move to the digital age and make this whole shift from offline to online. So now at Endowus, which is the first and only digital advisor for CPF, you can get on board and open an account and get going within minutes, right? So that's a massive sea change. So the experience and the barrier to start investing has been lowered. The second thing is that the cost of investing, man, it was as high as like 6 to 8%. Is what I remember, what we calculated. Now it's down. CPF board has done a fantastic job lowering the upfront sales charge, and the annual charges on the funds, because they were charging higher than what they were selling in a bank or a broker. So CPF did the right thing, which is lower the cap, continue to lower the cap, and now I think it's much more reasonable. It's still high, but it's at least reasonable, right?
It started with 3% sales charges.
3% sales charges,
Yeah.
the cap was 2.5% on the fund every year, that's 5.5% right there. And then if you package it into an insurance-linked product, they used to charge like 10%, 8 to 10% upfront. So, it was just ridiculous, because if you're starting with a minus 10%, to dig yourself out of that hole is really tough. And that's why insurance-linked products, especially sold through CPF, over 10 years, during the biggest bull market, it's generated like 1% or something like really stupid. And so I just really pains me whenever I see that, because they were kind of duped into buying it, because they said, oh, we have great insurance coverage and you get returns.
Oh, sorry.
No, I hate it. Really, I do. I mean, you might not be able to say it, but I can say it. I really hate it, because you get neither, right?
Yeah.
You don't get the coverage. Singaporeans buy the most insurance in like the world per capita, definitely in Asia for sure, and they're undercovered in insurance. How is that possible? How is that possible?
Yeah.
And they get crappy returns, which is anyway. So all these things needed to be changed, and so access to better products. Don't punt on like stupid stocks, like short-term speculation.
High flux, for example. Yeah.
Okay, let's.
No,
I wasn't
Hyphen's
gonna
a
go
whole
there.
different discussion.
Whole different discussion.
Perpetual
but,
bonds are not the same as
Yeah.
other investment grade bonds. And
But
it's
even
very
equities, right?
complicated. Yeah,
Even
yeah.
equities.
Yeah.
You could have bought equities, high
You could
flux
bought
as
high
well.
flux, on
But
this
anyway,
thing.
so that's a whole different discussion. But exposing yourself to risk that is unnecessary, and then buying products that are unsuitable, and then exposing yourself to cost that you're never gonna get out of. And those are the reasons why the 2.5%, those guys underperform. If you do it right, like if you have a globally diversified portfolio that balances risk and returns, if you approach it with a low cost solution, below 1%, all in, right? I don't know who does that, but there's guys who can do 1% less.
I thought you guys are doing that.
Oh, do we? Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we do, yeah.
Okay. Are we the only ones?
I think so,
Yes,
yeah.
you are the only
Yes.
ones. Yeah.
No, but
You
if
guys
you
are the
can
only
lower it
ones.
from 5% to 1%, guys, come on, that's and we'll keep lowering it because it's possible. It's
Yeah.
possible to lower it and generate good returns for customers and still do well as a business because being digital makes it possible to do a low cost solution for a much bigger audience. And so that's the key, and that's what CPF is really excited about, and that's what CPF actually wants to do. Now, CPF can do this themselves, but it's difficult, right? Because there's political issues, there's systemic issues, there's regulatory issues. So, CPF can't give advice, right? That's not why it was set up. It was to manage the pool of assets well. And so it's up to the private sector to do well. And it's unfortunate that no one had done it before. Because if we had started 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we would have had a fantastic run of returns for CPF members, and that would have set them up for success in the future, right? And that return would have set them up so that they can take less risk in the future. So all of these are all valid, but you really need to think about what CPF investment scheme is and how important it is to achieve that long-term outcome and fit that into your CPF strategy.
Okay. So I get the whole part
Yeah.
about solving the experience because it really suck. Waiting for time to set up the account and all that jazz. And I also get the part about low cost. Because essentially low. Dude, come on,
It's an easy win, right?
easy
It's an
win,
easy
right? You just bring down the cost. You have a bigger
Return.
profit return, right? So, but what is the composites if I invest with you, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because it's very different if
Yeah.
I'm just building a portfolio
Yeah.
absent of SA.
Yeah.
Like no none of that 4% risk free,
Yeah.
and that's a very different way to build a portfolio. But if I'm investing CPF money with you guys, how is that? How are you guys gonna build my portfolio, knowing
Yeah,
that a
yeah.
portion of the money will be with SA?
That's right.
Yeah.
So we actually actively say, don't invest your SA. Because if you want to beat 4%, the only way to do it is to have a high equity exposure, right? With a 100% equity fund, which is not allowed by the CPF. So therefore, the options are limited. OA options are better, still limited versus like cash investing, right? There's only less than 100 funds available within CPF. Only 35% can be allocated to stocks, etc. So there's limitations within CPF IS. So it's really important to understand what's available, how to build a great portfolio that works for you in the long term. And so we say, leave your SA, that's fine. That's your bond portion, as I said earlier. So how do you build this well? So we had to work with the CPF board and our partner fund management companies to bring in products that were previously not available. For example, passive index funds, really sad, but it wasn't available when we launched our service.
Really?
Yeah, there's none available, no passive index funds. So we worked with Vanguard, which is the largest in the world in doing passive index investing, and Lion Global, a local partner, to convert them into a Sing dollar denominated local passive index fund for example, the S&P 500 or the Global Equity Index, and we brought that into CPF. But what Endowus does uniquely is we give 100% trailer fee rebates, right? So all of these funds that are sold in Singapore has a portion of their fees that you, the customer, pays, and that is given to the distributor. So even guys like obviously DBS and private banks and everybody gets paid this for distributing funds, but even guys like iFast Fund Supermart or Dollardex or Poems, the guys who are supposed to be low cost and no sales charge, is actually taking a huge behind the back commission for selling a single fund, and that's why retail funds are so expensive. So we remove that by accessing institutional funds, or we give 100% trailer fee rebates, which is giving back that portion, and that's significant. But because we're the only ones that do that, the passive index funds that should be available to everybody, and we brought it into CPF so that everybody can invest, is only unfortunately exclusively available on the Endowus platform. Not because we wanted it, but because we're the only ones rebating the trailer fees, which is yeah. I mean, it's good for us as a business. So okay, we're okay with it. We're happy as a business, but as an individual who's trying to make really meaningful changes in the industry and the CPF system, so people can actually succeed, from that, angle, it's actually really sad and disappointing that other guys are not making this available because they cannot make money off of it, even though custom is the best product for the customer. So we build a portfolio based on these two passive index funds and other funds are available. We try to build a globally diversified portfolio so it matches a passive long-term, index strategy that's very closely tracking the benchmark. We don't make any tactical choices. So, oh, China's struggling, we should sell down China, or oh, we should buy gold, or all this stuff that some robos do. We basically are not tactical, but strategic passive asset allocators. So we make it globally passive, globally diversified in terms of geography, globally diversified in terms of sector. So you get exposed to the broad market so that you can generate the long-term returns that broad market indices will return for you without taking exceptional risk.
Yeah, I think Reggie, just now you were asking like the CPF IS is opening up, but if you look at the past 2 years since we have launched, there isn't any real competitors or alternative to Endowus, right? And that's the state that we are at, right? And it really just shows how groundbreaking our work is actually, right? Because this is not terribly
It's not rocket science.
yeah, it's
right?
not rocket science. It's very intuitive, right?
But we've made the effort to actually make the effort, right?
Yeah,
To
exactly.
solve the
exactly.
problem.
I know. CPF? CPF?
CPF?
It's like your advertisement. I was like, that guy, egg blur, whoever that guy is, shout out to you for appearing on the ad. But anyway, I just want to put it out there to the listeners that we did approach you guys to sponsor the series. Right, so it's not the other way around. Right, it's not like you guys come to us and you have a product that you want to funnel. Right, so I think this is very important because why? I didn't want to talk about CPF for a very long time because it's very political, it's too complex, and wherever position you take, you get all sorts of like angle and whatnot. But I think our platform has grown to a point where we need to talk about social policies, where we need to talk about it. And then I went to do the study and the research, and I was like, oh, you guys are the only ones.
Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
not like we want to be the only ones. We hope that other guys will join us.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like, whether you like Lou and 1M65 or not, he has this great line when he does his talks. He says, you don't have to like the government, If the government wants to give you money, would you take it or not? You take it, right? So the CPF system is not about like politics. It's not about whether you like the PAP or not. It's not about whether the CPF is good or not. It's not about anything like that. It's about what can you do with what you have? And everybody has CPF. And so for your sake, can you do more with CPF? And that's what this is about. So we are sponsoring it because we spend money on financial education and literacy. Not because we're selling our product, but because we are selling our product a little bit. But it's more, I'm being honest and transparent. We're all about transparency. So we are selling our product, but because it's good, and we have confidence in what we do. But most importantly, we want more people to know the options. And you don't have to go with us, you can go with other options. But we just think that people can do so much more with CPF.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's why I wanted to say that we reached out.
Yeah.
Right, because
Thank you, Reggie.
we were like, what are solutions out there, right? So because it's just very simple stuff based on like low cost, broadly diversified, And I was like, oh, there's only one provider at this point in time.
Yeah.
But going forward, I think everybody hoped that there'll be more providers and different stuff, right? Okay, but just to clarify, broadly diversified, it's mostly in the US, right? It's just US equity, broadly diversified, S&P 500 index, you're trying to copy that part.
We have everything. So we have developed markets, we have emerging markets, we have US, but all the other markets. So when we say broadly diversified, benchmark agnostic is the official benchmark tracking. Sorry, not agnostic. Benchmark tracking. We mean that we're tracking the most commonly used broad market index, which is the MSCI All Country World Index. And we have a similar setup as that index in terms of the geographic setup and the sectoral setup. So the US is the biggest market in the world, whichever index you use. So we track it from that perspective. So it's not like we're making an active bet that we want to be overweight US. It's just that the global stock market has a lot of US. And that's because US has great companies that, using stuff like Apple iPhones, and we're watching Netflix, and it's all Amazon, So basically, they
Whole
have
setup is from the US.
so we are exposing, like, and Singaporeans use US products and companies, and that's where we're exposing ourselves to, right? The best companies in the world.
I just want you to kind of put it out there of like what are some of the interesting features that are coming out. Like
Oh,
what are your
yeah.
plans? What's the future, right?
A
So
lot,
do your
lot.
sell. Yeah, this is your moment.
As I said, we're not here to sell, but since you gave us the opportunity, I'll take the opportunity.
Yeah, do it.
No. I mean, Endowus is not just a robo-advisor. It's the first thing I would say. Like, there's a lot of robos out there, and we get compared to it. But what we want to be is a total wealth platform where you can manage all of your money. And that's why CPF is such an important component, because it's such a big piece of Singaporean assets, right? And so, being the first and only to do CPF, we can actually do CPF cash, savings, and SRS. All of your money that's available here in Singapore. And don't get us wrong, CPF is important, but it's not like all of our business. So people think that Endowus only does CPF, but it's not. Actually, our cash savings and our investment part, cash, is actually much bigger than CPF, which is bigger than SRS. So that's kind of the thing. So what we have coming is we launched the CPF calculator. We've just excitingly lowered the cost for buying a single fund on the Endowus platform. So we got some concerns and questions about why am I buying a single fund on the Endowus Fund Smart platform and paying an access fee for it.
Great, cool stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Reggie. Great to
Thank
be
you.
here,
Awesome.
man.
Good
Thank
stuff. Good
you.
stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Looking forward. Hey, I hope you learned something useful today and truly appreciate that you took time off to better your life with the Financial Coconut. Knowledge is that much more powerful and interesting when shared, debated, and discussed. Join our community Telegram group, sign up for our weekly newsletter, follow us on our socials. Everything is in the description below. And if you love the podcast and want to help us grow, definitely share the podcast with your friends and on your socials. Specifically for YouTube, you like, share, subscribe, turn on the notification button. And with that, have a great day ahead. Stay tuned next week, and always remember, personal finance can be chill, clear, and sustainable for all. Okay, so since Sam has already answered these questions before in the
Yeah.
last interview, I'm just gonna ask you some questions that we ask every single guest
Mm.
that comes on the show, right? So the first thing is, what is a core life principle that you hold closely to?
I think for me, the thing that I model my life around, right? The saying that the quote or the saying that I model my life around is like, you either be the disruptor or you get disrupted, right? So I think for many of for us, right, when we are brought up in a family, which the golden generation of Singaporeans, right? They have a very stable income, the whole spiel around like buying a property, growing your investment through property and retiring through rental income. I think that is something that is going to be challenged, right? How we assume our salary is going to safely increase across the years is going to be challenged. So to me, I feel that I always try to make sure that I'm learning something new. I am also understanding what other countries, what other people are doing, so that I have that sense of like learning something, right? So getting disrupted, joining a startup is something very exciting for me. And previously I was doing real estate private equity. Now I'm doing content marketing, like with you. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Nice, good stuff, right? So I think there are a lot of advice out there in personal finance, right? So what is one that you feel needs to be further propagated, right? All the low cost, all those, a lot of people say
Yeah,
already, right?
exactly,
So what
exactly.
is something that you think should be further propagated?
Yeah, I mean, so I think personal finance should be very personal. Yeah. I mean, it's a
Tell
no.
me more, tell me more.
Yeah, it's a no
Nuance.
shit Sherlock,
Yes,
kind of comment.
yes.
Right, but I feel that when we read content out there, what happens is that it's actually shared with from someone's perspective, right? And if you were to look at the financial blogging space, 99% of them are huge savers, right? 90% of them, I would say, are fairly well paid, right? And and because of that, the kind of recommendations or the kind of strategies they put out there is very skewed towards a very specific group of the population, right? So I think when we look at how people all the different CPF hack, OA to SA transfers, don't use CPF for your housing, never touch your CPF. Those kind of comments are really, or strategies are really shared from an angle of, someone who is a bit more privileged in terms of their personal finances, right? So I think, before we, read any content, we have to be very self-aware, right? So we need to know where we stand in terms of our finances. And then, when we read some of these more skewed perspectives, we will be very aware that, maybe this is just, one side of the story, right? Should I go and look out for other perspectives? Should I look out something that's more relevant for me and where I am in the stage of my life, right? So keep personal finance personal, right? So, rather than just consuming content out there, also be very careful about keeping stock of where you are in terms of your finances.
Nice. So, what is which part of your life are you giving additional focus on now?
Family, definitely, right? So there's nothing stronger than family.
But you got a lot of taglines, huh?
Yeah, a famous man called Vin Diesel said that. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, for during COVID, we realized that there's family ties, family support is so important, right? We are going through very hard times. Especially for many of us working out there. We realize that work gets tougher. We don't have as much social interaction. We don't get to travel and have some time off. So, being able to chill out with family, get their emotional support, even though work is really tough, I think that's really important. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.